Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be welcoming Graham Kill. So, Graham's had an amazing career and continues to do some fantastic work as well across Suffolk and all across the world and the UK as well. But Graham's previously been everything from a mining engineer through to the CEO of Irdeto, lived in many different countries. Has held voluntary roles as well. So we're going to bring Graham on to talk to us a little bit more about his work. Graham,
morning,
welcome.
Jordan.
How are you doing?
Hi. I'm all right, thanks. Now that we've solved a few technological issues, as somebody in technology, I feel as if I should have mastered that. But anyway.
No, we got past it. It's all good. But I mean, how's things been for you recently with lockdown? Because I know you're sort of a little bit used to working from home, aren't you?
Yes, I mean, I'll pass by on the personal side because I think we've had it as a family, and my wife particularly badly, but it didn't necessitate hospitalization, thankfully. But on the work front, you're right, it hasn't actually changed that much. So I've been working like this, I think, for as long as I can remember, because even as a international CEO of a global company, of course, we were using corporate video conferencing for as long as it existed. It was very clunky, very horrible, and not a particularly pleasant experience. And you had to go to a special room with lots of expensive equipment. But, now, of course, it's accessible to all of us. And I've been working this way for at least the last 5 years. So I feel a bit of a fraud during this lockdown because for me, it hasn't actually meant that much of a change. But I'm really very, very cognizant to the people that are trying to work with young kids, all, running around their chair while they sit at the dining room table in a small flat. I mean, it just must be an absolute nightmare. So, I'm very, very fortunate, of course, that I've set myself up with a proper office, the right equipment, because it's essentially what I do.
Brilliant. And also, have you got coffee for Careers and Coffee Chat?
I am at this time of day more of a tea gentleman, so I have a very, very large thing of tea because tea makes the world go round.
All hot beverages are welcome, and I can definitely agree with that. Tea does make the world go round. So, look, you've already touched on that you've been an international CEO, but I mean, talk to me. What was your first job, and how did you get to that role? So, who's Graham Kill?
Well, so my first job was actually in a British Rail canteen, washing pots that you could have a bath in. I decided that whilst it paid a bit of money was not what I wanted to do, and it was a temporary stopgap. But my first job was working underground. So at 18, I left school with my A-levels. I had a place at university. I did what was unfashionable then, a gap year. They're very fashionable now. And went and worked underground at a coal mine in the south of Nottinghamshire. And I did every job in
there we go.
in the mine. There I am at the ripe old age of 18. And, it was a real baptism of fire because coming from South London, we don't have too many mines there. And I then, went to this completely alien environment. And not only that, halfway through that year, the mining industry decided to go on strike. So Nottinghamshire voted to continue to work. So there I was at going down, the lane to the mine on my little 99cc moped between lines of police and Yorkshire and Kent pickets trying to stop us going to work. So it was a bit of an exciting time.
That's quite the interesting role. I mean, did you always want to do that, or was it just something you sort of stumbled into to begin with?
Well, so I was one of those kids that was always a bit of an engineering geek. Not now with, computers. We didn't have computers. If they were around then, I would have probably been messing with them. But I was messing with bikes and engines and building go-karts and welding and this type of stuff. And so I loved engineering. So I wanted to go into engineering. But then in my lower sixth, I did what now I guess was equivalent of like an AS in geology. And I was also doing geography. And I loved the physical geography as opposed to the human geography. And so with those two things, the sort of natural world, moving forces of the earth and, plate tectonics and faults and mountains and things, I thought, how can I combine engineering and the earth? And I came up with mining engineering, and then subsequently researched it. I got sponsors through university by the then National Coal Board, and the rest is history, as they say. But it was the combination of those two things that I wanted to find some way to express the love of the physical world of the earth and its forces together with the more sort of practical engineering.
I mean, when you were at school, did you get any sort of careers advice around that? What was careers advice like at school?
Yeah, I listened to your interview with Helen, and you asked her, of course, the same question. And I was racking my brains thinking, did I ever get any careers advice? I cannot recollect a minute speaking to somebody about careers. I think they might well have offered, an hour or two somewhere, but I don't recall it. And I think I was so single-minded and focused that these were the two things I was going to do, and I'd made my mind up, that I probably would have said sod you anyway, even if you wanted a conversation with me.
I can't disagree with that. If you've got it in your head and you want to do it, just go for it. But let's fast forward a little bit to your role at Irdeto as CEO. So talk to us a little bit about that, because that took up quite a large chunk of your career.
Yeah, we should talk briefly how I got there. So the mines were closing. I was fortunate to go sort of be well considered in the coal mining industry, and was set for a decent career. Very structured environment, very predictable. At least the career was predictable. Working underground wasn't predictable. And I thought my life was set. It was something I loved doing. I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. But the mines were closing around me faster than I could find opportunities to go and progress my career. So I decided then to jump ship and go to private business with British Gypsum. And I ran a couple of gypsum mines underground in Britain. But it was clear that industry was also rather challenged. So I decided to do an MBA, quit everything, took a massive risk, took on huge debt, went and did an MBA in the Netherlands. And then subsequently, this weird company came recruiting at the university, and it was a media company. Now, what I knew about media, you could write on the back of a postage stamp. But they wanted somebody who was, numerical, good sort of business, quick thinking brain. Apparently I had that, and they subsequently hired me to do business development and corporate finance. Now, for your listeners that, that sounds all very grandiose, what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
Well, business development was basically being a spreadsheet jockey. And what that is, when somebody comes with a big deal that they want to do with another company and perhaps merge them, you have to crunch all the numbers and tell the board basically why it makes sense. Yeah. I wasn't very good at spreadsheets. I bluffed my way through university on that. And then suddenly I was finding myself doing a job in which I had to be a spreadsheet jockey. Anyway, I learned quickly, managed to bluff through that. But corporate finance is doing deals. And so I quickly became a sort of project manager for mergers and acquisitions. And then eventually they trusted me enough to actually do some deals myself. And they had some technology interests. And they said, "You're an engineer, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am. But my engineering is big hammers and not ones and zeros." So they said, "But that doesn't matter. You're an engineer." I said, "Okay. And you've been doing this corporate finance thing. So we want you to go into this technology company of ours. We're going to put $50 million into it to convert its technology from analog to digital. And it's really important that we get it done quickly, because we're going to be putting satellites up in the sky, which cost a fortune. And if it's not ready, we're going to lose a fortune. So can you please make sure that these engineering folk who are brilliant actually do what they're meant to do from a business perspective?" So I went in as the CFO and operations director to Irdeto to help them get that project to fruition, which we did. And then a couple of years later, I became the CEO of it. So that's how I got there.
Wow,
through a weird set of circumstances, basically.
That's quite interesting. We just got a question on that as well. So, what skills of being a coal miner similar to being a CEO or exec chair?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, there's a couple of things there. When you are messing with Mother Nature and you're digging big bits out of her, she doesn't respond very well. She gets angry. And as a consequence, unpredictable things can happen. Gas, water, roof falling down. We do lots of things as engineers to stop this happening. But it's a very unpredictable environment. And so planning and thinking about the scenarios that can happen, making sure that everybody's safe continuously. Accidents do happen, but it's our job as management to deal with that uncertainty and try to tame it, if you like. And I think that was incredibly important for my life as a CEO, particularly in the technology world, which moves incredibly quickly and is full of lots of uncertainty. And I would say now, for this very uncertain world that we're in with a global pandemic that most people hadn't envisaged either. So that's one aspect. The other thing is that in a very down-to-earth, excuse the pun, world of mining, you're dealing with everybody from a boardroom director to a guy that's got a shovel in his hand.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to relate, communicate, try to convey why we're doing something, try to keep people motivated. And to do that through a whole range of people who have a whole series of different motivations as to why they're at work. And to be able to try to relate to them and connect with them, I think is an incredible, important skill. So I would encourage anybody really to, go do some different things as well as, what your intended path might be, because it will give you a whole range of social experiences that are so important later in life.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you, Graham. And I mean, bringing things up to sort of 2020, what are you currently up to at the moment?
Yeah, so in 2015, after 23 years living abroad, I'd lived in Italy, Canada, mainly the Netherlands and China, doing my work. We decided as a family to come back to the UK, which, I subsequently resigned from my role as CEO as a consequence. And, I was left with, what the hell do I do now? And you don't expect at sort of age 50 to be saying, okay, what am I going to do next? What's going to be my next career? I'd had 2 careers already, but I now needed to think about what the third was. So I had 2 principal choices, I guess. I could have gone back and tried to be a CEO and done it all over again. But I didn't particularly want to go and travel the world like a lunatic. I was traveling sort of 60% of my time, intercontinental flights continuously. And so I could have then, had what was called a portfolio career, in which I, have some advisory roles. I sit on boards, chair companies, volunteer in charities, volunteer in other community and business organizations. And I felt that was the better course, because it was very variable, lots of different things which stimulate me, and that I could connect much more with a local community as a consequence. And that's essentially what I do.
That's brilliant. And also, you talked about living in different countries for 23, 24 years. Why do you think experiencing different cultures is so important? What did that, I suppose, bring to your role as chief exec of the firm? Did you tackle things slightly differently, experiencing those cultures?
Yeah, I think that it brings an open-mindedness to difference, and that difference isn't bad, and difference should be embraced and can achieve better outcomes as a consequence. And I take that then that analogy into other things, it is good that we have diversity in our boardrooms. It's good that we have diversity in our workplaces, because they do make for better outcomes. But boards perform better, companies perform better, you get more diverse thinking, you serve customers better. And I think that my experience of lots of different cultures has made me, much more appreciative of that, and to be able to adapt and understand where there is difference and say, it isn't bad, it's a thing to be embraced.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've just got another question in. So you spoke about a love of geology, which obviously shaped your starting career. Does this love now carry over into hobbies or a possible future career? Fourth career.
So I'd still take a very great interest in the natural world. Interestingly, doing A-level geography, I felt that the human geography wasn't particularly interesting, but I've actually come to appreciate that because I was involved in an investor in a startup locally that was about transportation. And it's a lot about moving people, how people live, where do they want to move to. And suddenly a lot of things that I studied at A-level geography came back, and I thought, oh my goodness, it actually was useful. So, never discount what you've learnt, because you may actually apply it at some stage, even, some sort of 30 years later. I was a bit rusty, needless to say. But I'm still very interested in the physical world. I don't think it will necessarily come back in my career path, but what it does do, I think, is make me very appreciative of our environment. And I realize that I have been very unkind to our environment during the course of my career, having mined coal, which spewed out huge amounts of greenhouse gases, produced gypsum, which needs huge amounts of energy to make it happen, and then flown for 20 years on planes. So, lifestyle choices and things, I like to think I try to do a bit back. I'll never be able to get myself carbon neutral after that lifetime. But, I think what it has done is it made me much more appreciative of the natural world.
Brilliant. That's a good response. Good response. And I want to talk a little bit more about young people now. So, you've worked in so many different organisations, and no doubt obviously worked with young people throughout as well. And I know we've worked closely through our links at the IOD to support young people in the world of work. But, what are some of the key skills that you look for in a young person at work?
Yes, it's tough. I really feel for young people at the moment. Getting their first break, particularly, is such a crucial thing. What I like to see in people is an adaptability. I'm never going to get a finished molded article at the start, and nor should I expect to. We're both going to learn from each other during the course of our time working together. And so what I'm looking for is somebody that has, very much a can-do, will-do attitude. Somebody who can demonstrate adaptability to a whole range of different situations that they might be encounter. And, the world of work and the world that we live in is so unpredictable that you need those people that can twist and turn and, make a new plan, because I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to say this on live streaming. Shit happens. And so that's an important aspect. I like people that, learn, admit when they make a mistake, but want to learn from it, and that are continuously learning. Because one of the things I think is important in a career is putting things in your sort of virtual briefcase, if you like. Not that anybody has a briefcase these days, but, that you're putting on board that you might deploy at some stage. And you never know what combinations of things create exciting opportunities. The best innovation comes when people put unsuspecting things together. So if you are always just an accountant, it's great to be a specialist, but if you can have an interest in, humanities or something at the same time,
Yeah.
or media, or then, maybe you're a person that can connect with a different part of the marketplace. Maybe you can put together solutions to help that world. And it's these collisions of different skills, disciplines, thinkings that create the exciting things in the world.
Brilliant. That's good advice. I think adaptability, I think given the circumstances we're in, cannot be more vital at the moment. I mean, do you think there's any sectors or industries that young people should be considering that maybe they don't often look at?
I think the problem is that a lot of people are channeled down particular industries because of a profile that they might have done on a careers advice, etc., or some sort of family friends experience. But do realize that most professions and businesses have a whole range of different jobs and disciplines in them. So, accountancy firms have marketing departments. Accountancy firms have HR teams. Technology companies, you may not be a coder, but we need great marketing people. So I think it's about finding an alignment with an industry that you're genuinely interested in, but you don't have to be the hardcore specialist, coder, accountant, lawyer. But there's a whole variety of things that you can do in those type of industries. I'd be more inclined to say to people, what industries should you not go into, as opposed to which ones you should go into.
Any recommendations there?
So what might you not want to go into are things that, look, unfortunately, as young people, for a whole variety of reasons that we know about, you're going to be working for a hell of a long time. So you've got to find something that has a true alignment with your values and where you're going to feel naturally comfortable in. So don't pick things that in 30 years' time people are predicting will be taken over by robots. Because you may find that if you haven't progressed right up the tree, that your job's gone. And then if you don't have enough skills in your virtual briefcase to go and adapt and jump somewhere else, you may find that you're like so many of my colleagues in the mining industry who didn't adapt and didn't change, and then have very tough afterwards because their whole livelihood got taken away.
Yeah.
So look at those industries, and there's great OECD studies and things that sort of predict which jobs will be disappearing. Then don't go into jobs that you don't have a true alignment with your feelings and values. I mean, don't go, if you particularly care about the environment, don't go into a company that potentially is, damaging the environment because it would go against your core beliefs.
Yeah.
And ultimately you'll find it and you won't be happy.
I think that's some great advice. And yeah, it comes back again to your original point, that level of adaptability. And I like the analogy around that virtual briefcase, making sure you've got those skills, qualifications and knowledge to be able to move on to something else. I also want to touch on the fact that you do so many voluntary roles as well. Why do you think it's important that people volunteer, and in particularly young people, that they volunteer as well?
So could you say that again, Jordan? You're just breaking up.
That's right. So you have a number of voluntary roles. Why do you think it's important that people volunteer, in particular young people, that they volunteer as well?
Yeah, so why is it important? You know, so many of our charities and things are so young, yet so many people on the boards of these charities are not young people. So I've got some. Have you got feedback here?
I can hear you I can hear you clear, but I can hear sort of something in the background.
Let me try to fix this.
I can hear you clearly, so you should be okay.
Sure where that's coming from. Yeah, so the young people, they don't have, and so their beneficiaries are actually not properly represented. And so, you know, they're run by old fogies like me. And, you know, whilst we do our best, you know, we don't necessarily have the right representation. We don't have that diversity. And, you know, we certainly don't have a good pipeline of those leaders on those boards in the future. I'd really love to get connected to young people that have an interest in serving on charity boards and try to help them, you know, find their place to serve their communities on there.
I agree with that, and that's I'm quite passionate around diversity, and especially at board level, because I know that more often than not, boards may not necessarily reflect either the workforce or the communities they serve as a result of that. So I think it's great that you'd be willing to have those conversations with young people as well. So just a couple more questions before we sign off for today. So there is a lot of students out there who are about to embark upon their next pathway and maybe feeling a little bit nervous and anxious about their future. What's your advice to them?
No, sorry, I lost that. Then a little bit nervous about what, Jordan?
Yeah, so there's a lot of students out there quite nervous about their next.
There's a very big delay on the.
That's right. So there's a lot of students out there who are quite nervous about their next pathway. What's your advice to them?
It's breaking up. I'm not picking up. There's a very big delay and just breaking up.
Oh, that's not great. I'll try and ask again. If not, we'll have to leave it there. There we go. Graham, can you see the question? Hopefully that might be better. So your advice to young people who are now setting out for their next pathway.
No, unfortunately.
No, right. I think we'll have to leave it there with Graham today, but we managed 29 minutes. So folks, that was Graham Kill. So unfortunately, technical difficulties got the better of us, but we managed to get through 29 minutes, which is still fantastic. So Graham there talking about some fantastic advice to young people, especially around making sure they're adaptable for the next pathway in their life as well, given the circumstances that we're in, is incredibly important. Below, you'll be able to see a little bit more of Graham in terms of a description on him, LinkedIn, all of those sorts of things. And also, if you can take 30 seconds to fill in our survey, just gives us an idea about the sort of guest that you want on Careers and Coffee. So that is this week of Careers and Coffee completed. Next week, we've got on some really interesting guests. So we have Tiff Jones from BT and EE. And that's on Tuesday. On Thursday at 12:30, we have Judge Rupert Overbury of Ipswich Crown Court talking to us about what life is like as a judge in 2020. So given the coronavirus. So next week's going to be really, really interesting. So tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:30 till 1, Careers and Coffee. Thanks.